Alrighty guys, welcome back to our video. First off, I would like to thank everybody that subscribed to our channel. You guys are great. Thank you for supporting our video. We're going to bring you guys a lot more information, so stay tuned today. We're going to talk a little bit more in depth as to why I chose crested geckos and also touch base on a little bit on care of those guys. So stay tuned and check out this video. Thank you. Alright guys, so I'm going to tell you a little bit about as to why I chose crested geckos. For me, like I told you guys in the previous video, I went to a show and I had a lot of reptiles before that. And I came across Barb once again, and she got to tell me about the crested geckos and how low maintenance they are. The fact that they don't need any heat, any light, room temperature, 68 to 78 degrees, which is what most people keep their houses at. And then the fact that you don't necessarily have to feed them insects if you do not want to. They make a food, it's crested gecko diet. There's lots of brands out there. But you turn it into a paste. It's a powder substance. We mix it with water. We turn it into a paste. And we're going to offer it to those guys every 2 to 3 days. Okay. Most important part to keep them alive is we're going to spray them with a water bottle daily. But that's going to also depend on what kind of enclosure. So we're going to talk more in depth on those specifics today in this video. But that's kind of why I chose the crested geckos and gives you guys some insight as to what intrigued me to them. Alrighty guys, so the first thing I'm going to talk about today here about the care of the crested gecko specifically is going to be talking about the food. This is a very, very deep topic. I'm not going to be able to get everything in today. We will probably revisit this, but first off, I would like to say that I personally like to use Pangea. It's one of the best foods on the market in my opinion. There are a lot of other brands out there. I personally have tried them with my geckos and don't see as well of a feeding response as I do with Pangea. So I would like to say that I recommend Pangea. We are a distributor for them as well. But as you see that how they're lined up here, those are the 4 flavors that my crested geckos like specifically. And I think that that's the nice thing about Pangea is they have multiple flavors out there. So we're able to switch it up and change it up for our geckos and give them new flavors. But talking about the fact that they don't necessarily have to have insects. And that's going to hold dear to a lot of new hobbyists or parents. You guys got to think, a lot of parents are going to put their nose up to the fact that they have to feed these reptiles that we are offering them insects. So with the crested geckos, which is a #1 plus for me, is the fact that we have a brand of food that already has the insects in it. Okay, so if you do not like going to the store and getting crickets, worms, things like that, with the crested geckos, you don't necessarily have to give it to them. We do recommend that you give it to them, more so as a treat. Once to twice a week, you would give them a few crickets or maybe dubia roaches, but again, as a treat. It's not going to be their main diet. Alright guys, another question that I often get is going to be, how do I make the food? Okay, as you guys seen before, it starts off in a bag. I personally like to put mine in a cup like so, just makes it easier for me to pour it. But as you see here, it's a powder substance, okay? So what I like to use is a bottle like so, or for something that has just maybe a few geckos or 1 or 2 geckos, you can use something like this that's a lot smaller, okay? But you're going to add a little bit of the powder, you're going to add a little water, and you're going to actually start to shake that bottle up, okay? And it'll begin to mix and it'll turn into a paste, okay? A lot of people often ask me about the ratio, which is, in my opinion, a very broad question. It's going to depend on how many geckos do you have, how often are you feeding your geckos, is really going to be more so how to answer that question, okay? I personally like to tell people just to make it the same consistency as yogurt, baby food, ketchup. You want it to be a little thicker, okay? You want the food to actually be thick, kind of like you see here. You don't want it to pour out of the dish, okay? And the reason being is when the gecko sticks its tongue in here, as you guys can see, the food begins to stick to my finger, okay? You're actually going to be able to see that the gecko is eating the food, and also it's going to be a healthier, heavier diet or meal on the animal, opposed to if it's very runny, okay? Something like this is a great bottle for first-time people, maybe somebody that maybe just has a pet. It's a great thing. We offer these in our kits. I think they're awesome. They're great for kids, okay? The parent can actually make the food and leave it in the refrigerator, but it begins to build a responsibility for the kid, okay? If the food's already made, the hard part's already done, every other day, every 2 to 3 days, then the child will have to go to the fridge, get the food out, but it's good 5 to 7 days in the refrigerator, okay? So 5 to 7 days, so you don't want to make this entire bottle. If we do and we only have one as a pet, chances are it's going to waste our food, which is very important because if we're wasting our food, we're wasting our money. Alrighty guys, the next thing I'm going to talk about in this video is going to be the fact of how much food to actually give my crested gecko. As you guys can see here in this video, we've got 4 different size food dishes laid out, and we have one of our hatchlings that just hatched out here this last week. And as you guys can see here, compared to these 2 bigger dishes there, we're obviously not going to offer that guy that much food, and definitely not that much food, okay? He's not going to eat all that. The first one is going to be what we would offer him, which is size comparison to like a water cap lid, okay? And great example as to why we don't want to offer that guy that much food right there, because if we do, chances are he's going to climb in it, it's going to cause shed issues, things like that. But small amounts of food, okay? These guys aren't going to eat a lot. They have very, very small stomach. But just an example for you guys, about that much food there is what we would offer, something that size. And we're going to pull out another gecko and we're going to break this down for you guys and give you examples on how much food to offer your gecko. The next example we have here on the table is going to be, this guy's probably 4 to 5 months old and probably weighs 8 to 10 grams. So it gives you guys a size comparison to the food dishes. Again, we're not going to offer many of these guys. Because as you see, they're a lot bigger than he is. But I would recommend that food dish right there. So comparison to that would be a like Dasani water cap lid, and you would fill it up to the rim. Alrighty guys, this female we have on the table here, she's approximately 8 to 9 months old. She would be weighing in at about 18 to 20 grams. And then we would offer her this dish that you guys see here, okay? And chances are she may not eat all that food, but that's giving her a nice healthy meal. So that size dish right there, okay guys? Alrighty guys, last but not least here we have a full-grown female on the table. She's approximately 3 years old, and we would offer her the largest dish that you guys see here. The one that you guys see in the video is going to be a Gatorade cap lid, so you can easily use one of those. Or we would recommend the half-ounce feeder cup that they would offer from Pangea. Alright, so that's kind of the start of what's going to be the base of our segment today here. Gives you guys some, hopefully answers a lot of questions on how to make the food, more so what ratio of food to offer to the animal. Now we're going to go into actually talking about size enclosure and proper enclosure, and that's also going to kind of lead back into how you feed your animal, okay? Something I would like to touch base on real quick before we move forward in the video is for anybody that purchases a new crested gecko, always keep in mind that the person that you got it from, they may have that animal on a different schedule, they may have it in a different enclosure, you may have just upgraded that animal, you may have gave them more space, which is going to take the animal more time to find their food, you may be offering them a different flavor, again on a different schedule. So always keep in mind guys, if you just purchased a gecko and just got it into your care and you see that it's not eating, give it time, okay? Definitely give it time. A healthy gecko is not going to starve itself. They're going to get to the food. I get a lot of people that just bought a gecko and they're telling me, hey, my gecko's not eating. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to start asking some questions. What size enclosure? How much food are you offering? 90% of the time I get people that are going to tell me that they're offering the food every single day. And I want to let you guys know, if you're putting the food in there every single day, chances are you're not going to see a feeding response. Because the gecko's not going to eat every day, so spread it out every 2 to 3 days. If you think that the gecko's not finding its food, offer less food, and you're going to actually see that the gecko ate all the food that you offered. So that'll give you guys some clarification on that. So let's go ahead and go to the next part of our video. We're going to talk about enclosures. Okay, let's talk about the proper size enclosure for your crested gecko. Okay, as you guys seen in the earlier segment, we had out our hatchling and our 4 to 5 month old crested gecko. So those guys, we would recommend that you would do a 8 by 8 by 12 or a 6-quart tub, okay? If we put them in these bigger enclosures, 12, 12, 18, 18, 18, 36, chances of them finding their food is going to be very slim. It's going to go down, and it's just going to be a lot harder for that animal to survive, in my opinion. So we want to keep them in something smaller. It's going to be easier to find their food. I personally like the tubs. The reason being, okay, if we put our food in that enclosure and we put the top back on there, it's going to infumigate the area, and the animal's going to actually smell the food a lot better than if we were to put it in a cage that has a screen top. Our next option that we're going to have available is going to be our 12, 12, 18. We have an 18, 18, 24 as well, but then the 18, 18, 36, okay? I personally would recommend that you do 12, 12, 18. For somebody that maybe has multiple crested geckos. If you were going to keep just 1 or 2 adults, okay, we're talking about adults or approximately a year old and up, okay, once they've already hit their growth spurt. You can do it 18, 18, 24. A lot of things online are going to tell you guys 18, 18, 36. More so for, in my opinion, is if you have a few as pets, okay? You guys keep in mind that as a breeder, you know, it's going to be very hard for a breeder to keep this many enclosures and have a mass amount of crested geckos. So we would probably lean more to a 12, 12, 18, a larger tub enclosure. But the max size I would recommend for an adult crested gecko would be 18, 18, 36, preferably a 12, 12, 18. All right, let's talk about how often we're going to spray an enclosure based on what kind of enclosure it is and how much ventilation it has, okay? In my opinion, if you have a Exoterra, so kind of like you guys seen in the video here, with a screen top, you're probably going to want to spray that enclosure twice a day, okay? Probably once in the morning, once in the evening, and reason being is that that enclosure is going to dry out a lot faster than our tub would or our custom enclosures would. Something like the tub or our custom enclosure you're going to spray once a day, okay, because it's going to hold that humidity a lot longer. But keep in mind, guys, we want a wet and a dry spell for the crested geckos. If we continue to spray the animal and continue to add water, mold and bacteria can build and grow in the enclosure. So you definitely want to pay attention to how often you're spraying it and kind of how it's holding humidity. Another thing to keep in mind that I like to touch base on with a lot of my customers is that we have to use a little bit of common sense into it too. And that being said is basing it on what time of year is it? Are you running heat in your house? Are you running air in your house? Those things are going to determine on how fast the enclosure is drying out based on the temperature in your house, whether you're running dry or cold air. So just keep that in mind, and it's something that you kind of just got to regulate and watch. It doesn't take long to get a feel for that, but those are very important factors into how often do I spray my enclosure and how much do I spray my enclosure. Alright, let's talk about how to set our enclosure up, or what materials or products can we use in the enclosure to set it up and make it look natural. First off, I would like to state that I personally use all artificial plants just because I have so many crested geckos. I'm not opposed to bioactive setups, but there are pros and cons to both of them, okay? And I'm going to touch base a little bit on that. But so we use artificial plants. I personally like to use stuff kind of like you guys see here. And the reason being is it's very fine. The gecko can actually get in there, climb in between, and get the shed off. So that's very, very important. And then I like to use cork bark in a lot of my enclosures, or recommend cork bark in there. That's going to help the gecko with shedding. It's going to help them feel secure. They can hide in there, hide under there. But with those elements being touched base on, I like to tell people to also keep in mind that if we add, say, a cork round, or we add a bunch of foliage in there, we definitely want to make sure that we find the animal and actually direct the spray to them. And the reason being is if the animal's hiding in there and I come in here and I miss the enclosure and he's behind that piece of cork bark, behind maybe a leaf or something like that, he's really not going to get any of that spray that we've actually put into the cage because they're nocturnal. So they're going to be out more at nighttime. So unless you're spraying at nighttime when you're sleeping, chances are your gecko's not going to be getting any of that spray. So just locate the animal. Don't be afraid to actually spray them directly, and that's going to ensure that they get the water that they need. But these are plants that I like to use. Again, you can do bioactive setups. There's tons of options out there for that stuff. I personally am not very educated with it, so unfortunately I can't really touch base on that. I personally like to use artificial plants. Alright guys, that wraps up the video here today at the Gecko Junkie facility. Thank you all for joining us and watching our video. I hope that it was very helpful for you guys. I hope that the information that I've given you guys helps you with the success of your crested geckos. We look forward to seeing everybody this weekend. We will be at Charlotte REPTICON, so definitely if you guys are in the area, come out and check us out, Charlotte REPTICON. And thanks again, everyone that has followed the channel. Definitely check it out. Like and subscribe to our videos, please. We look forward to giving you guys lots more fun information, taking you guys to shows and things like that. And definitely give us some feedback in the comments below. Let us know some things that you guys think about. What did you think of this video? What do you think we should talk about in our next video? But anyways, thanks guys, and have a great weekend. Look forward to seeing you in Charlotte.